So I will be talking to you this morning about what the African Union is doing and what we are all about, because I recognize the fact that not all of us have had a chance to basically interact with the African Union, and just so that you know who are we, what do we do, what are we about, and how are we supporting policy and strategy within the region. So I'll talk about who we are. I'll not go into the status of food and nutrition security, because I think this has been spoken about. I'll talk about the nutrition agenda of the African Union, our policies and strategies, and then what is our strategic direction going forward. So the African Union Commission started in 1999, as then it was called the Organization of African Unity. Since then, that changed in 2002, and it became the African Union. And it is really an alliance of the 55 member states. And this union is a union of heads of states and government. And so every declaration, every work that goes on within the African Union is actually mandated by the heads of states for the 55 member states. And what that means is that it also gives us a very big convening role within Africa in terms of all the policies and strategies and declarations that come from the African Union and are then adopted by the members, by the heads of states. We have the African Union Commission, which is the secretariat, and which is where the Health Humanitarian Affairs Department sits, where I come from. We also work within 5 regions: East, Central, Northern, Southern Africa regions. But the African Union also works through the 8 regional economic communities. And what that means is that when we are convening any sort of consultation or deliberations, then we have to make sure that we do it within the 8 regional economic communities. There are also 4 implementing agencies. I won't go into that. You can see them there. I won't go into the food and nutrition security, because I think we all know the figures. So what is our nutrition agenda? So after the establishment of the African Union in 1987, the Africa Task Force on Food and Nutrition Development was established. And this is the arm, actually this is the technical arm of the African Union as far as nutrition is concerned. And this arm is the arm that actually looks at all the policies and strategies and then ratifies this. It is an arm that is made up of several member states. It's also made up of several technical partners and also NGOs and others. And within this task force, any technical issues that are handled by the nutrition, by the health department, they must go through this technical arm. I won't go into details about the others. I just wanted to show you that since 1987, there have been a lot of declarations and commitments made, and these commitments are then adopted by member states through the heads of states and government. The only one I wanted to just emphasize on is the fact that, and for the sake of this meeting, is that we have the Africa Regional Nutrition Strategy that was developed and endorsed in 2016. And through this strategy, the strategy is actually based on the World Health Assembly targets. And based on that, we also have what we call the Continental Scorecard. And this scorecard then looks at what have we committed to do within the region, and then, helps member states to then track the progress of these targets that we have established. The other one I'll bring up here, because I know the next session is on advocacy, is that we also have the Africa Leaders for Nutrition, which was initiated in 2018. And this is it's a collection of heads of states that have agreed to be champions for nutrition for Africa, basically. And what they do is then they do high-level advocacy in most of the global meetings, regional meetings, to make sure that nutrition stays on the agenda. When it comes to malnutrition and how we are addressing this, there are several things that the Africa Union Commission does. And one is to implement the assembly decisions and commitments. As I said, when these commitments are done, they are endorsed and adopted by heads of states. What this means is that each and every country, each and every of the 55 African countries, once this endorsement is done, then you are mandated or obligated to then ensure that these things are implemented. And that's what gives us sort of a convening power. And that's really our advantage as far as some of these decisions are concerned. The other thing is really policy and strategy formulation. When as I said, we have the technical working group. Once policies and strategies are formulated, then what we do is then to support member states to domesticate these strategies. And we do this also through convening at the regional economic community level, as I mentioned earlier. Our other role is also to harmonize and coordinate. And this means when we have a continental strategy, this strategy is then expected to be domesticated at member state level. And that then brings that, policy and strategy harmonization. Of course, we work with the regional economic communities, enhancing capacities, knowledge sharing, like this forum is doing right now. It's one of the mandates of the African Union Commission, advocacy, monitoring and accountability. I've talked about the scorecard, and of course, resource mobilization, which is part of what we hope that the Africa Leaders for Nutrition through the heads of states can support member states to do, and which is critical, again, for some of these new initiatives that we see. So just quickly to just show you what policies and strategies currently exist that have a bearing on nutrition. We have Agenda 2063, which is the overarching agenda for the entire African Union. And it also has a 10-year implementation plan. And goal 3 of this agenda is really healthy and well-nourished citizens. And that is where nutrition also falls in. We also have the Africa Health Strategy, 2016-2030. Goal 2 of this is to reduce morbidity and end preventable mortality from communicable and non-communicable diseases and other health conditions. And again, for the sake of this meeting, this is also another goal that is relevant to maternal nutrition. The one that squarely lands on nutrition is really the Africa Regional Nutrition Strategy. The current strategy, this is done every 10 years. And the current strategy is ending next year. And as I said, the current strategy was really based on the World Health Assembly targets. And it's being, and we are monitoring the progress of this through the Continental Nutrition Accountability Scorecard. And then there's the roadmap to achieve the 2025 vision. And as you may know, nutrition is not doesn't stand on its own, because there are many other sectors that affect nutrition impacts. And so we are working very closely with the agriculture sector to ensure that, the Continental Agriculture Acceleration Development Plan also looks at nutrition, and not just food security, but nutrition security as well. In 2022, based on what was happening in the continent, and also because of COVID, the African Union made 2022 the year of nutrition. And this has actually extended from 2022 and continued in 2023. And some of the things that this theme was supposed to actually prioritize was to strengthen data management and information systems, ensure that we are increasing advocacy for commitment in nutrition investment, partnerships and accountability, and enhancing institutional capacity. And just to mention that, especially when it comes to advocacy, as I mentioned, we have enlisted nutrition champions, and maybe I know there are several member states here, and some of these are the nutrition champions for the African Union. And His Majesty, the King of Lesotho, is actually the African nutrition champion, and has been for quite a while. And what these champions are supposed to do is actually to support us to advocate for nutrition in high-level events, because being member states, they are not only advocating for their own countries, but on a collective goal that is for nutrition. Then, of course, there are global partnerships and commitments. Most of these champions also get involved in most of the global initiatives that we see. In September, we had the UNGA, and there was a philanthropy side event. And in this event, there were commitments made to support, especially ending school-age hunger, in partnership with CIF and the World Bank. There is N4G coming up, and what we are also hoping is that as countries are making commitments at country level, during N4G, we can also use the nutrition champions to then support advocacy for those commitments. So the commitments you're making through the UNGA, the N4G at country level, are then brought together at the continental level, and then we look at, what are like the 2 or 3 main commitments that countries are making, and how can we then use our champions to then, advocate for those commitments at the global level. This is just the Continental Nutrition Accountability Scorecard, as I mentioned, and most of the indicators are based on World Health Assembly, so I won't go into that. So where are we going? We are about to start the next process of developing the next nutrition strategy for the continent. And these are going to be, the things that we want to look at. We want to make sure that this time round, we don't only look at the first 1,000 days, but we then focus also on other cohorts. So we are going to be using a life cycle approach in developing the next strategy from 2026 to 2032. One of the big things here is that consultation with member states is key, and the regional economic communities, and so that, because the African Union doesn't develop a strategy for itself, it's supposed to be owned by member states and the communities. And so that is a process that has to be led right from the regional economic communities and member states. And in addition to, of course, looking at what the last strategy contained, we also want to be cognizant of what has happened. And so issues to do with climate change, anemia, the anemia agenda, adolescent nutrition, which now is becoming more and more an important issue, and of course the humanitarian and development nexus, and aligning these with all the other AU commitments that have happened over the years. I just want to bring this up just for a minute, because as many of you may be aware, there is the Anemia Alliance that is a global agenda right now. And in Africa, what we've been able to do, we've actually been able to develop our strategic framework for accelerating anemia reduction in Africa. And this is a process that was actually supported and informed by member states. And so what is in this strategic framework is actually the work of all the member states, the 55 member states. And what we are hoping to do going forward is to actually make sure that this framework is then institutionalized within the different member states. And this is key for the work we are doing this week for anemia reduction, because it's one of the goals of the strategic framework. So whatever it is we are doing here, because this is a big opportunity for us to make sure that this framework then gets domesticated at the different member states. So I'll just finish by saying we are still far from meeting the targets that we have set to achieve. Anemia has stagnated. We need a renewed effort to make sure that we are not only making plans at country level, but then we are able to then turn these plans into action. And part of that is actually making sure that, we are not only looking for resources outside, but the member states are also allocating domestic resources to ensure that some of these things are then come to bear. Thank you.